Yeah, talking freedom and liberation. Worldwide, not just only for the nation. A radical guide, it's time to make changes. Bringing interviews and radical education. Yeah, a better future, what we really need. Not rooted in capitalism or supremacy. Yeah, trust, you don't wanna miss it. We bring the truth right to you, the past, present, and future. Let's go. A radical guide, that's what this is. Highlighting the diverse world of resistance. Let's go.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Jason Bayless of A Radical Guide, and we are gathered here with a powerful panel conversation featuring some of the most influential and dedicated leaders in the ongoing struggle for social justice and empowerment. But before we jump into the conversation, I want to give you some background of each of these groups. The Black Panther Party, founded by Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton in October 15th, 1966 in Oakland, California, played a pivotal role in the Black Power movement. The Black Panther Party is known for its community-based programs such as free breakfast for children, health clinics, and educational initiatives. The Black Panther Party also advocated for self-defense in response to police brutality. During an interview, Huey P. Newton was asked, "What can white people do to support the Black Panthers?" Newton replied that they could just form the White Panther Party. So in November 1968, in response to Huey P. Newton's answer, the White Panther Party was established. This anti-racist political collective stood in solidarity with the Black Panther Party, working to dismantle systemic oppression and promote social justice through various community-based initiatives. The White Panther Party was brought to Washington State for the first time in May 2021. In solidarity with the Black Panther Party of Washington, the White Panther Party organized, expanded, and supported communities in Washington State. And at the beginning of 2022, the Central Committee of the White Panther Party voted that an evolution in the party was necessary. And the Washington chapter of the White Panther Party decided that running under a white flag was counter-revolutionary. And in that light, they updated their platform and changed their name to the Panther Party. Today, these legacies live on to empower people to take control of their destinies. Another key ally in this struggle is General Strike U.S. General Strike U.S. is a grassroots movement dedicated to organizing the nationwide general strike to push for significant political change by uniting diverse individuals and organization. General Strike U.S. leverages the collective power to achieve meaningful and lasting change. A Radical Guide is proud to say that we are an organizing partner of General Strike U.S. And we're also honored to have representatives from each of these esteemed groups with us today. So please join me in welcoming our panelists by starting with Bunchy Carter, who is the National Minister of Defense of the Black Panther Party and the National Liaison for the Panther Party. The National Chairman of the Panther Party, and representing General Strike U.S., we have Daii from the Detroit chapter. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having us. All power to the people.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So let's start off with a question for you, Bunchy Carter. The Black Panther Party has a rich and impactful history. Can you share with us what sparked the resurgence of the Black Panther Party and how it evolved to meet the challenges of today?
Well, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer for me as a child of a Panther. This is kind of where I've been my whole life. But it was, of course, I had taken some, detours from it, as a young, reckless individual. But as an adult, once we saw in 2020 the George Floyd assassination in Minnesota, along with Benny Branch, Manny Ellis, and Saeed Joaquin here in Washington, there seemed to be a newly elevated demand for the security of the people. So that was our first step. But of course, as we began to formulate this branch of the party, and we realized, much like the original party did, that we had to go beyond that, because the demand of what the people need is so much greater than just protection from police brutality. the demands of what we have to do to fight imperialism are much greater than that. So that caused our expansion. And I think the easiest way for us to meet the demands of the people in the present time is simply by listening to the people and finding out exactly what it is that bothers that they feel is the most important thing. See, the problem with most organizations that I've seen is they'll have these think tanks, and they come up with these great ideas and they put them in motion. But the problem is they never spoke to the people who is going to affect the most, to determine if it's actually something that they need done right now that is going to give them a greater peace of mind and make them more capable of understanding the actual concept of revolution and why it has to happen. So that is currently where we find ourselves at. Still working in defense against police brutality, but also working to educate the people to raise their consciousness to a level that they can understand the concept of revolution and why it has to be more than what their rose-tinted glasses may show them it is.
Yeah. So you speak about the programs and raising awareness and education in the community. How does the Black Panther Party go about doing this, connecting with the community, and what specific programs, initiatives do you offer?
And specifically in regards to education, we have community political education classes. We have a book club, which is named after Comrade Shay Brooks from Chicago, All Power Comrade. And of course, the community political education class is named after Afeni Shakur. These are just two of the core programs that we utilize to educate people. But realistically, every program that we run is purely an exercise in political education, whether it be literal political education or people being hands-on and actually volunteering to help fill a gap that exists in the community. All of it's political education, because sometimes you don't know those gaps exist until you're actively working to fill them. So yeah, I think all of our programming goes to that.
Yeah, thanks. Let's bring in the Panther Party here, and kind of same question is like, can you talk about the inspiration behind the creation of the Panther Party and how it is different in itself from the original White Panther Party, and how are you still carrying that legacy forward?
Absolutely. So the biggest difference between the White Panther and the Panther Party is simply just the name. The White Panther Party operated for 3 years, from 1968 to 1971, before they changed their name to the Rainbow People's Party. And when I was working with Bunchy and the Black Panther Party in Washington as just kind of an independent, and people started asking, "Who's the White Panther? Who's the White Panther?" And then people started asking how they could help too. And then eventually, I sat with the Central Committee of the Black Panther Party, and it was agreed that I would start organizing to be able to act in solidarity as the White Panther Party did with the Black Panther Party in the 60s. So from there, as you stated, there is a massive legacy that comes not with just the Black Panther Party, adding the legacy of the White Panther Party there. And I can tell you, there's nothing that the Black Panther Party takes more seriously than the people. And with that comes the legacy of the Black Panther Party. So with that, we felt that it was very necessary to follow in that same suit. So we spent months trying to contact members of the White Panther Party. Finally, I got a message back from an original member, one of the original founders, and I told them what I wanted to do, and they gave their blessing to do so. So with that, I don't normally put that person's name out, just because they have kind of a separate life. So I don't put that name out there, but we gained the blessing, and the one thing that they said was, you should change the name, because we were thought of as a a white supremacy group. We got accused of appropriation. And that was never our intent. We were always accepting of anybody. It was just that's what it needed to be at that time. And that's why we changed our name. And I stupidly said, you know what, we're never going to have to do that, because every time I got that logo on my chest, I'm going to be standing right next to a member of the Black Panther Party. And they said, yeah, that's cool. You're still going to change the name. Let me know when you do it. And we operated for almost a year, about 9 months. And in December of 2021, we started talking about it. We officially ratified it in January of 2022 to change our name to the Panther Party, because we were always accepting of any member of any race, religion, orientation, gender, capability, age. It didn't matter. If you're there for the people and you want to help the people, you have a place. And that was always their ideals as well. So I called that person back, let them know what we were going to do. They asked if we were going to go with the Rainbow People's Party. And it was definitely something that we considered. But in our hearts, we were Panthers. So to move away from the Panther line, that was a difficult decision. So yeah, we ended up changing our name to the Panther Party, and their initial notion was, yeah, I wish we would have thought of that. But they agreed, and we've been operating as that ever since.
Have you noticed any significant changes in terms of both kind of public reception and engagement, or do you think it's maintained the same?
No, there's definitely been a more accepting view by the community. When you see a Panther that is specifically white, and that's something that comrade said was, and that's why we use that terminology, is the revolution cannot be won under the flag of white. And I've had to reflect on that for a few years now. And it made me wonder, is that, because both notions are true, is that because we, as the white community, imperialism is a white function, and we need to be accepting of everyone. And at the same time, I started thinking, well, does that mean that we can't win under a white flag, because a white flag is submission? So now that we run as, under the flag of gray, it is all accepting. And, having members of other races, and just a whole, just like spectrum of people coming together, all running under the same flag in support of the Black Panther Party. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. And there are still chapters of the White Panther Party out there. It was strictly our chapter who branched away to create the White Panther Party, to create the Panther Party. But yeah, it's the acceptance, I think, is what really like sparks in people's heads, and it shows with our solidarity with the Black Panther Party that everybody has a place.
Thanks for sharing. I want to bring Daii into here and kind of talk about the General Strike U.S. It's like, from my experience with General Strike U.S., I've noticed that General Strike U.S. has garnered significant attention recently with your strike card and just the organizing that's happening. Can you explain why, for those who don't know, why General Strike U.S. exists and who is it for?
Absolutely. Essentially, we're just, a decentralized strike network. We aim to get 11 million signatures for Americans who want to see systemic and radical change. change, including our broad list of demands pertaining to social, economic, technological, environmental, and political justice. We are here to organize the base for the collective to strike, strategically planning our resistance to ensure the needs of the people will be met before and after the strike. This movement is for people, including myself, who feel that the U.S. is not serving them and their needs adequately, or even experience persecution due to various foundational parts of our society. Regardless of our identifying characteristics, solidarity is demonstrated for a common goal. We are working to establish a decentralized network of autonomous nodes across the nation, interconnected systems based on many familiar solutions, such as intentional communities, mutual aids, time banks, liberation courses to help decolonize the minds of the people, skill sharings, co-ops, and other grassroots initiatives.
Wonderful. So, and then how do you, because when you think of a general strike, you think that the collective is working for a common goal. And when we're looking to create a general strike for the entire nation, how are you organizing and how are you making sure going about that people are being represented within that organizing?
Of course. So one of our fundamentals, one of our pillars, one thing that we organize around is the 3.5% rule. So looking into that, the 3.5% rule, it details if we reach 11 million people in American anywhere, but here in America, if we reach 3.5%, that's the threshold to enact radical change. That in itself is it's our strength and numbers and diversity. And this strike, if organized correctly, it will allow each diverse community voice to be amplified within itself, if organized correctly. So it is a movement, a very inclusive movement, like we heard from the Panthers, just to empower all of us, no matter the race, the gender, orientation, regardless of it all. At the end of the day, we're just humans, and we care about other humans. So as far as like how we aim to argue, how we aim to target our audience through like our initiatives. One is our strike card. Also, we have a couple projects that we're currently working on. One being our welcome packet. Our welcome packet is a tool. This is being created to make this movement relatable to any and everyone, whether you're an individual seeking change or an activist or organization. Our audience, once again, is 3.5% of Americans. The more, the merrier. But it's definitely vital for us to be synonymous with different communities and identities. Essentially, the purpose of the welcome packet is to onboard interested members, establish mutual understandings and of the movement and actionable steps that each individual can take.
Wonderful, thank you. So there's a common thread that all three of you brought in to this conversation, and it's really around solidarity. And there was a quote at the beginning of this panel conversation from Fred Hepton, who said, "We say you don't fight racism with racism. We're going to fight racism with solidarity." So this is kind of a question to anybody in the panel who wants to pick it up. Since solidarity is a kind of a cornerstone of any movement, can you speak of how your organizations are fostering solidarity amongst yourselves and with other movements? And I think we just lost somewhat.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, but I'm sure you jump back on. Go ahead.
Solidarity is shown through our strike card. Also, just in the way we move. Essentially, we're a decentralized network, coalition building, working with other groups, finding out the connections and to see how, we can mutually show solidarity. The General Strike, we tend to want to align ourselves with other groups and orgs that can help us reach, meet, and obtain strike needs and strike demands. So solidarity is very important. I believe I had a quote from Frantz Fanon I wanted to bring up. When they mentioned, they speak about solidarity with this, we must obtain revolutionary socialism everywhere, or we will be defeated by our oppressors, our former masters. So just that saying that we can't leave out anyone, we're not free until we're all free.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in, and then I know Bunchy had some issues, so he might need to rehear the question. But of course, solidarity is the cornerstone of everything we do, and it's not just solidarity with other orgs. It's the solidarity with the people. The people are always going to be the most powerful entity in anything that we do, whether that be bringing sustainability to the program, to any survival program we have, or adding a legitimacy to the 10-point platforms. The 10-point platforms are built on the needs, the wants, and the beliefs of community, and it's the solidarity of the people and reading those and saying, yes, this is what I want, that brings that togetherness, and that's why the Panther ideology is able to operate so effectively within the community, and that's why, even in times of danger, in times of critical incident in the 60s, many of those incidents could have ended much, much worse if the people weren't there. But just them being there, just them standing witness, prevented a lot of bad things from happening. But working with other organizations, working with independent people in the community, it all comes from the notion of we have to meet people where they're at. If somebody has less of a political education, if somebody has less or more of an understanding of the needs of the people, we have to be able to meet them there and see what their needs are, and give them some whatever necessary knowledge or whatever necessary assets they might need to help their education, to help their lives, to help their survival. That's why we call it survival programs. It's survival pending revolution. And the 10-point platform is the basis of all of that. And with all of those things combined, and being able to say, we need to meet people, we need to meet other organizations where they're at. We might not always agree on every point, on every notion that's presented, but that doesn't mean that we can't support each other in solidarity on different things that we're doing. The only time that solidarity will be broken away from the Panther Party is if you are acting in a spirit or action that is dangerous for the people, or not in benefit of the revolution of the people.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things is dispelling a lot of myths is where it starts. First of all, there are people who because their initial interaction or engagement with the Black Panther Party was actually the new Black Panther Party, not the Black Panther Party. There's a belief that the Black Panther Party is a separatist organization, that we only work with Black people. The Black Panther Party was absolutely positively created to deal with the issues of the Black community. However, we talk a lot about the evolution of things, and in the evolution of the party, as Huey and Bobby gained greater insight into how the things that they were studying had a global impact, not just in Oakland, it became obvious that it has to be bigger than that. Like, a lot of people don't realize that when Eldridge Cleaver ran for president, he ran on the Peace and Freedom Party ticket. And the Peace and Freedom Party was absolutely positively a party that was formulated by white hippies in Oakland. Um, you know, one of the things that I think goes a long way towards forging that solidarity is the highlighting the commonality of our struggle, and highlighting the commonality of purpose. Um, I can't say that I can't have solidarity with my brother when I know that when it all comes down, there have been times when all of the walls fell down and Addo was the one standing there. You know what I'm saying? Or Doc, the Minister of Education, was the one that was there, or whoever from the Panther Party was there, or a member of the community that doesn't look like me was present. And because of that, it's absolutely necessary that we forge, that we refine our unity in the Black community, but we can't allow that to keep us from finding unity outside of that, because this thing that we're fighting, imperialism, uh, is far too big for any one group to defeat it alone. And the sooner you make that known to people and they embrace that and internalize it, the sooner they can let down the walls that keep us separated. America has invested a lot of time and energy in drawing lines between us. They've invested a lot of time and energy in drawing lines on the map. With the people, we're nothing more than another mass of land to them, and they've drawn the lines of demarcation between us, borders between people, and we've been comfortable living behind those walls for the longest time. So now that we're starting to put holes in the walls and we're starting to find that commonality of purpose and that commonality of our struggle, it makes it harder for those walls to exist. Intercommunalism is all about removing the walls. You know what I'm saying? Because capitalism's already done it. We just have to make people see that the wall's not there. So now that becomes part of the crux of what it is that we're pushing for. Hey, do you realize that thing you thought was standing in front of you isn't actually there? Do you realize that this person that doesn't look like you, that you thought was an enemy to your progression, that you thought was an enemy to your liberation, actually wants the same thing you want? I think that will help capture the imagination of people and move them in a more unified purpose.
Yeah, we're up against a lot of layers of intentional barriers that's been set up, and it's hard to see the barriers when you think it's your window. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that, what I'm hearing from this group in terms of, like, it's about being on the streets, but it's also about the conversations you're having on the street, and with the people, and what you're cultivating together. Because I think that we talk about, groups talk about solidarity a lot, but it's hard. It's sometimes hard to see the definition in action. He's like, Dave was on a previous panel about the General Strike on a Radical Guide, and we were talking about solidarity. It's, solidarity doesn't mean we have to be friends. It means we have to understand the struggle and be there for each other. And so, and I'm hearing that deeply rooted in what you're saying and what you're bringing forward. So thanks, all three of you, for sharing that. And since we're kind of talking about being on the streets and being in the community, I want to kind of transition us into the programs that y'all have mentioned that y'all are doing, working on. And you've named them off in different configurations, but I want to break them out one by one and really explore, like, what are these programs? What are they trying to achieve, and what successes have you had with them? Not just to check boxes and say, hey, this is what we're doing, but I also want the listeners to engage with this in terms of, like, this is happening in the world. It's hard to see something, to do something or see something if you've not seen it before. And so I would like for this, to talk about the programs, to give people permission to be creative and be inspired by this. So these questions are open to the entire panel, and I want to focus on the community outreach to start off with. And I think we lost Bunchy again, but we'll keep going. So each of your organization emphasizes community outreach and survival programs. Can you share some of the most impactful programs and the philosophy behind them?
Absolutely. So each individual chapter of the Panthers, whether you're talking about the Black Panther Party or the Panther Party, are going to have a different set of programs that they might be running. There might be a lot of overlap, but that's all based off of our 8 local objectives. So you have the 10-point platform, which is a national platform, but the 8 local objectives is something that builds strictly down to that community. So each chapter of the Panthers has a different 8 local objectives, and some of them might overlap if we want to talk about a massive issue like police brutality. It's very, very rare, if ever, that a chapter of the Panthers haven't had a notion of fighting police brutality in their 8 local objectives. If you want to start talking about something like houselessness, many chapters have a notion around houselessness in their 8 local objectives, because not only are we trying to be there for the houseless community that is already living on the streets, but we want to ensure that more people aren't being driven to the streets, whether it be through gentrification, whether it be through just price gouging, and a slew of other things. So many chapters might have that, but if this chapter happens to exist in an area where they have more pressing matters than houselessness might not be on there. And with those 8 local objectives, I say that to say that's why the survival program structure in these different chapters might be different. And it could be, again, a little bit of overlap, like the Feed the People program in many chapters, because there's already programs in place to provide food to low-income families, to different members of the community. The Feed the People program might still provide food to those different marginalized groups, but they might focus more heavily on providing food to the houseless community. But again, if houselessness isn't a big risk in our particular area, then it might be a matter of, hey, we are much more focused on low-income families in this area. But there are some that are nationwide, like pig watching, going out, doing the security teams. But the platform itself is going to alter a bit, but there are standard practices on how we execute, depending on what the needs of that particular community are.
Great. Real quick, before we continue with this question, we've mentioned the 10-point multiple times, and you kind of touched on what it is. Can we give a little bit more deeper explanation of what the 10 points are? So in case somebody's listening doesn't know, they can kind of help put pieces together. And anybody can.
Bunchy, if you're available, I would definitely. You are going to be the man to take that one.
Okay, so the 10-point platform is essentially a document that was, you can see it right behind me, right here. Is essentially a document that speaks to the demands of the people, and what it is exactly that the existence of the Black Panther Party is for. Now, here's the glitch in the matrix, as I like to say. The glitch in the matrix is that the 10-point platform is nothing more than asking or demanding that the government does what they're supposed to do. And so that heightens the contradiction by simply showing that the basic things that the government is supposed to do, they're not doing. Even based off of point 1, we want power, we want freedom, we want the power to determine the destiny of our Black community. That shouldn't have to be something that's asked for, ever. But it is. And then you proceed on to we want full employment for our people. That shouldn't be something that we have to ask for. We want into the robbery of our community by white capitalists. Not something we should have to ask for. decent housing, fit for the shelter of human beings, education that shows the true nature of our existence in this country. All of those things are not things that we should have to ask for. However, the fact that there is a platform in existence that demands that those things are given to us, it shows where the gaps exist between the people and the system that's supposed to be taking care of them. Point 7 is always going to be my favorite because it's a demand for the end of the murder of the black community by the police department, an immediate end to that, and that is the point that normally sticks out to people the most, in regards to the Black Panther Party, simply because of how we started. Also, the 10-point platform of the Black Panther Party and the Panther Party together covers the entire scope of not only historically what has been wrong in society, but what continues to be wrong. The 10-point platform of the original White Panther Party was wild. I don't know if y'all ever read it, but if you haven't, I promise you should go do that, because it was wild. But there was a reason why it was wild like that. Part of the reason why I think.
Oh, we lost him again.
So just to add, just to talk about, we were feeding off the 10-point platform and solidarity. Just that right there about us finding the common grounds between us, between our struggles and the work that we do. The General Strike, essentially is, here to help craft demands what the 10-point platform has already done so eloquently. Also just finding the middle ground, that connection to how we can relate that mutual solidarity. Out of that 10-point platform, I do see point 1, we want the power to control our own destiny, and point 10 being my favorite, we want land, housing, bread, and freedom. Essentially, these can be found in common strike demands now by organizing the General Strike, and it just amplifies our situation and our struggle, this struggle for generations. And that's something we say, in the General Strike, we protested, we marched, we voted for generations. Enough is enough. Essentially, this is just the strike is just another form of resistance, us using our strength in numbers to amplify the 10-point platform. And every community can establish their own platform. Every community is different, and essentially a General Strike will allow others to use their voice to help put in their input on what they want, what they want to see, in them to help reconstruct the society, for us, for the people. That solidarity, and we talked about it earlier, solidarity is essentially just, it's an action. It's a verb, the way we're talking about it. We see a lot of cross membership, through this solidarity, through our organizing, me, myself, and I, being a Panther myself and working with the General Strike. We see how easily these two groups can be compatible. They can correlate, and it can amplify this movement, take it to new heights. So we have a lot of cross memberships. We have solidarity as a verb, and we have already a platform in place, the platform, 10-point platform, survival programs. I just see no way, if we all, collectively come together, what do they say? The people united can never be defeated.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hey, Bunchy, you want to pick up what you were saying? I think the last thing that. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I was about to say. I think they kind of put it in a nutshell. We the actual thing that I tell a lot of the BPP members is, one of the things that's going to stoke recruitment and that's going to make people want to join the party is you have to be the walking embodiment of the 10-point platform. You have to be that. The demands that are made in the 10-point platform are common sense demands. So you can't approach it from the standpoint of talking to people like you asking for something that's so out of this world. You have to make it plain to them that you see this, you see this right here. This is.
We lost him again.
Okay. So one of the biggest questions about the 10-point platforms that we get on a regular basis is, this is a revolutionary organization. We actively fight against reform. But the language in the 10-point platforms can be seen cosmetically as very reformist language, because we're talking about things in the current system. But to what Bunchy was stating earlier, it's by heightening those contradictions and showing the community that not only will they never provide this, imperialism will never provide these demands, even though they are so simplified demands. These should be common sense demands. But not only will imperialism never provide it, they can't. If all of these demands were met, imperialism would crumble. And just with that contradiction right there, that's why the language is stated the way it is. That's why the focus on the contradiction is what it is. And the demands will never be met without revolution, even though they are such simplistic demands and basic human rights.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I was at the. Go ahead.
Even like when we talk about like when we say political education, really is just getting the people together to empower them so they can believe, that we are responsible, we are the change. These survival programs and these events, community events that we have, when we are out feeding the people, when we are out talking to the people, it's all action, it's all us, and the platforms reinforce it, but it's just a reminder that we are essentially our own government. We are the power source. We are the true energy source.
Absolutely. But you want to finish your thought that you were trying?
I'm almost scared. Nah, this is like I like everything I'm hearing though, because realistically speaking, what we have gained in the course of moving forward is we see that the 10-point platforms in and of themselves, much like we've already stated, there's very basic things. There's nothing overtly out of this world about it. But the thing is, much like I often say, we have to exhaust the means of everything. So people still have in their minds that voting for someone for a public office is going to fix the problem. So what you can't do is act like you're so superior to what the people are doing that, oh, you guys are dumb. Why are you doing that? No, you get in it with them. And why you get in it with them, the whole time you in it with them, you have to explain to them, hey, look, I'm trying to tell you this ain't gonna work, but we can do it. I'm telling you it's not gonna work, but we can do it. And then as soon as it doesn't work, you were the one the whole time telling them this isn't gonna work. So then their question becomes, oh my God, that didn't work. And they're gonna look directly at you and say, okay, then what's next? You have to have an answer. Just so happens that we are armed with an answer. So that is the most important thing you can have. The most important thing is to remember, never forget that regardless of the fact that we're doing this for the people, that we are the people as well. You can never forget that part. So when we talk about feed the people, you can't go feed the people and be hungry. Make sure you feed yourself too. We have to be the living embodiment of what it is we're trying to get them to become. If they're not revolutionaries and they're activists, meet them there and bring them along. Don't belittle them. Don't. We have to learn not to talk down on people because they're not where we are. Meeting people where they at is not always a physical thing. Sometimes it's a psychological thing, a physiological thing. Sometimes it's an ideological thing. You have to understand people are going to operate in what they know, and that's all they can do. You have to give them something new to know in order to get them to act in a new manner, and that's what the 10-point platform is about. By reading this, you start to understand exactly what the government's not doing for you. So,
Thank you. So going now that we set the foundation for what the 10-point program is, let's go back to looking at the community outreach and the programs, so we can connect the dots to this. And I think you dropped out when we asked this question earlier, so I'm just going to repeat it in case you want to respond to it, since we have you there. It's like, your organization emphasizes community outreach and survival programs. Can you share some of the most impactful programs and the philosophy behind them?
Oh man, one of my favorites. Well, my favorite part probably is the community defense class. I like teaching people how to defend themselves. It's kind of fun, and it's also interesting to see how much people don't know about defending themselves. Um, Especially people who are putting themselves on the front line of something like this. Like you would willingly walk into a situation where you may end up going head to head with people who may not be the best trained, but they do have training. But knowing that you have none of your own, kind of troubling. But it is what it is. I think the Panther pickup and community barbecue is probably one of the bigger things, and there's a reason for that. A, the Panther pickup is essentially cleaning up a park or a community in the city. We bring out the pickers, we bring out trash bags, we go out and we go start cleaning up. Now, the thing that happens is you invite people out, but you don't expect people to come off the invite. A lot of the people that we've had come participate in that particular program came over because they saw us doing the work and was like, man, I'm glad somebody's doing this. Can I help? You live here. You should. That's not the response, but that's what happens in my head. I mean, you live here. You should probably be doing this already. But what that does is it begins the wheels turning. And it gets, if you get multiple people from the same community to come out and help with this program, then bang, oh man, all of a sudden now, we tell them we might not make it back to this park for 6 weeks. You know what I'm saying? We have a cycle. We're moving around the city. We may not make it back here 6 to 8 weeks. In between that 6 to 8 weeks, guess what happens? They start going out and cleaning up themselves. So then we come back in 8 weeks, there's nothing to clean. Because they've done it already. And that in and of itself, that's a very small thing, but it engages people in taking ownership of where they live and taking ownership of making sure that it's a clean and safe place for them to exist. I don't think people realize how much you invite things into your life simply by leaving the door open. You invite your neighborhood to turn into a certain thing if you leave it a certain way. I often tell people the ghetto doesn't have to be the ghetto. Yeah, people of low income live in these areas, but everything that happens outside of that or that happens within the confines of that community, we have the ability to control it. But we have to make a conscious decision to do so. So the Panther pickup is like a doorway to that. But then you add the cookout on because we talk about people eating. People are not going to come out and work for nothing. We can't afford to pay you, but we can feed you. And while we breaking bread, a lot of times the best way to find a way into somebody's mind and to find out what they're thinking is to feed them. Because then they'll talk to you. And as they talk to you, they begin to tell you exactly what they think is wrong with the place that they live. Oh man, I'm glad y'all came out here because it's hella dirty. Glad you came to clean it up. But you know what else? This is happening. And this thing is happening. And just about every other night, this happens. Now we have documentation of what this community needs. And it's easy to apply the proper point from the 10-point platform when we come back to talk to these people, to galvanize them, to move in towards finding a solution. So that's the whole purpose of the survival programs, really. Like a lot, I'm going to keep it 1,000 with you. Survival programs are a mind fuck. Pardon my French, but that's what they are. That's exactly what they are. Let's be honest about it. We're filling a need. We're finding a way to make it sustainable to allow people to take care of themselves. We're eliminating the system from the picture without even having to say that. I don't have to tell you that they're not going to send Parks and Recs over here no more if you keep your place clean. You'll know because you won't see them. They don't got to come here now. So a survival program for me is nothing more than bringing people to a level of consciousness that will allow them to do the thing that the system is not doing for themselves. So that's what all of it's about. Feed the people. Community defense class, community political education, the book club, all of that. Community PE and the book club, think for yourself. Think outside of the box. That's what all of it's supposed to be for, to encourage people to find that thing inside of them that's whispering to them that something is wrong and listen to it. That's all it is. So I don't know. Maybe I went a little off course there, but I'm just saying to me, that's what the survival programs are for.
Absolutely. Anybody want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I add. Right on, comrade. Right on. Everything you just said, definitely. Just to add to that, even with the general strike, we've adopted some of the programs from the Panthers. In our Detroit chapter, we tell people, we send people to political education classes through them. Programs and our strikes are vital for us, just as Panthers, for us to be able to familiarize ourselves with the communities and pinpoint their needs. Essentially, this can be summarized as like one big science experiment. We're out in the streets doing the hands-on work. We're making a hypothesis. We have our General Strike chapters. We have our Black Panthers, our Panthers out there doing the work, fulfilling the people's needs, being able to pinpoint them, and in a way, we're already like crafting strike demands. We already have our 10-point platform. So being in the field with these programs helps us collect data, collect research. It's one big science experiment, and a lot of the Panther ideology, is based off of science, the science of dialectics and things of that matter. So, it's not just us, hey, let's just go out and see if this works. But we actually have a method to this madness. I think it's very vital for the General Strike chapters to pinpoint this and try to mimic it in so many words with our own chapters. We emphasize each chapter having a service of their own. Some services here, Detroit Documentary Club. We would like to do park cleanups as well. Like, these things help. It gives you an opportunity to network. And like Comrade Bunchy said, connect with the people, help them to use their critical thinkings to see and to empower them. And it speaks to our decentralization as well. We want to empower each individual to use that critical thinking to see that they are the ones that can make these changes themselves. We are capable enough to control our own communities and our mentals and our destinies.
Absolutely, I agree with you. The kind of the science aspect of it is like throwing out like, will this work? How are we going to make this work? Let's test the theory and build upon it and get it, more voices and ideas. And I think that's a very powerful way to approach it. And then I know that with the rise of white supremacy and the rise of fascism throughout the world, coming out of the woodwork now, I know that a lot of people express fear and concern about being on the front line or involved with community work and survival work. How do y'all address those fears within the community to build that strength so that we can can stand together? And that's open to anyone. So.
Personally, what we do here, the chapter here in Detroit, I feel like we all have a role to play. Everyone has their own abilities. So I would say start off with something. Start off with encouraging them to start off with something they're passionate about. We all have a role to play in this revolution. So if they're passionate about sewing, if they're a healer, if they're a gardener, if they're doing something they're passionate about, it really should decrease the fear that they have to contribute to the movement. So when people think about the revolution, they tend to think, even with the general strike, they tend to think, hey, we're about to go out with 3.5% with picket signs, or it's about to be, violent. Not saying that, we can't be prepared for that violence, but technically we're going to need everyone to get into their field, get into their passion, and really help push this movement, regardless if you're an artist. If you do hair, we still need to look good while we out there, whatever you do, the smallest thing, the biggest thing, it all helps push this movement. So telling them to do something that they're passionate about really helps decrease that fear.
I really like that. And that really picks up what Bunchy was saying earlier, is meeting people where they are. That's really strong. practice. So thank you for that. Anybody else want to add to this question?
I know that Bunchy is about to go ham on the security aspect of it. So I'm just gonna get my answer out of the way real quick before he starts talking about the different things that he does to ensure that people are safe. So my only notion that I would add is, and it kind of goes towards your previous question about just the survival programs in general. The biggest notion that I try to push to the community when it comes to the survival programs is we need you to be involved, and that's not only just to keep it sustainable. The Panther line will build that program towards sustainability. The reason it's so vital for the people to be involved in that program is because the Panther line states that after that program is sustainable, it has to be given to the people. So if the people are already there, the people are already helping run it the day to day, when the time comes, the people can take control of it, and it can be a smooth transition, and we don't have to say, okay, now that this is a sustainable thing, here's how we did all of it. You were there. The people are running it now. The biggest notion of or I should say, I guess, kind of the misconception, the legacy of the Panther will never die. But if the Black Panther Party, if the Panther Party, if we're successful, then there will come a point where we never exist, where we don't exist anymore, because that's the purpose of the platforms. That's the purpose of the parties, is to lead us to a point where we're not necessary. So having those programs built and having people there operating on the ground level, when that becomes sustainable and we can put it into the hands of the people, if they're already there from day one operating it and seeing it and contributing to it, and there while it's being built, it's going to be a much more fluid transition. And like I said earlier, having the people involved gives it a level of power that just we ourselves cannot bring, because the Panthers are only ever going to be as powerful as the community allows us to be.
Absolutely. And I want to pull out something that you just said, because I think it's very powerful, and I want people to kind of think on it a bit. It's like you're organizing yourself out of existence. That's the goal, is to no longer be needed. I want people to think about that. What does that mean? Because normally when you hear people talk about organizing, you're organizing to achieve a task or a goal and then move on to the next thing. But what you just said is you're organizing yourself out of its existence, the need to exist. That's powerful, and that kind of like opens up so much. So I just want to take a moment for people to soak that in. So thank you for saying that. And I think Bunchy, you wanted to jump in as well.
I mean, realistically speaking, my involvement with programming is a little different than everybody else's. In the grand scheme of things, as a program is being put together, my objective is primarily just to ensure that whoever is executing the program, whoever is volunteering at the program, and who is being helped by the program are safe during the execution of said program. Um, I think it's imperative that that happens, though, that they see that aspect of it, because there's a lot of times that I see people jump out the window to go do a march or a protest or whatever, and the security is the very last thing they think about. You know what I'm saying? So they'll start organizing their protest or their march, and then the day before it's supposed to happen, I'll get a phone call or a text or an email saying, "Hey, Bunch, we're doing this thing, man. You think you guys can come help with security?" And I'm like, "Nah, we can't," because I don't operate that way. Like I should have been involved from the very beginning, so that I could tell you what we can and cannot do. Um, and that's not done to endanger anyone. It's to teach a lesson that you have to recognize every aspect of everything that you're embracing from the very beginning. It has to be a part of it from the start. Um, what I think is most powerful about this whole thing though is much like Addo was saying, and even what they was alluding to as well. The power in this is actually the people. It ain't us. You know what I'm saying? Like we had the idea and we put the program together and we hit the start button. But we're not what makes this go. You know what I'm saying? It You can have the greatest idea for a program in the world, but if nobody comes, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? Without the people, none of this means anything. So um, I can't say that programming in and of itself is not going to be the answer, but the programming becoming sustainable and people finding the power within themselves to keep these things going without having to rely on the system that has already proven it doesn't want anything to do with keeping people in a sustainable situation. It will create the division that's necessary. See, I was going to say something about division earlier when we were talking about solidarity, and this is actually the perfect place to put that. The division that creates is a strong division. There are two different kinds of division that can exist. It could be strong division or it could be a destructive division. Destructive division occurs when we can't find solidarity with each other, when we can't find that unity of purpose so we can move in the same direction. That is destructive division. But more productive division occurs when you start to generate those programs and they become sustainable and you pass them off to the people and they start to realize, wait a minute, for the last year we've been feeding each other without going to the grocery store, without, you understand what I'm saying? Like that's a wake up call. So that is the kind of division that we're fighting for. And much like Addo was saying, and I love to say it when I talk to new recruits, the objective of this is very simple. I'm a Panther, so we don't have to be Panthers later. So I'm a Panther, so they don't have to be Panthers 50 years from now. You know what I'm saying? And if we are successful in revolutionizing the way people think first, if you're successful in revolutionizing the way people see themselves and each other and the communities that they're creating simply by existing together.
Every time.
I mean, I guess in a nutshell, programming has to be the gateway for us to bring people to understanding of their collective power. And once we do that, it's easier to move them into a space where they understand the concept of actual revolutionary action and why it's necessary. And so it makes it a whole lot easier for the powers that be to villainize us in the eyes of the people in that state. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So getting into the minds of the people and looking at the legacy and the work on the ground, I would like to kind of talk about the inspirations from history, because history is a powerful teacher for us. Can each of you share examples of how historical events or figures have inspired your current programs and strategies?
Funny you ask that because most people think that um, Huey P. Newton is probably my second biggest inspiration. um, like my name in and of itself should tell you who the first one is. Um, but the thing that stands out the most to me in historical aspect is seeing individuals who didn't have the protections that we have in some cases in the current time, um, that were willing to stand up and fight. As far as programming goes, seeing the effect of the free breakfast program for the Black Panther Party and all of the other programs, like when I saw the actual list of the programs that they built, and it was like 35 programs, I was like, geez. Like you never hear about all of that. You only hear about free breakfast program and maybe busing people to prisons and they had free shoes, they had that free ambulance service. It's so many things. But all of these things were put in place, much like I said previously, to stand in the gap between what the system wasn't providing and what the people were saying that they needed. So that in and of itself was inspiring for me to say, okay, let me find out what's not happening where I live. And let's see if we can do that. Let's start there. Every other program that happens after that will build from that, because from that one program, we get people in and we get to hear their stories. And that's where you get the information. You know what I'm saying? And then building on that. So, but I learned that from seeing what the Panthers did in the past, from seeing what the American Indian movement did in the past, from seeing what the Weather Underground and other organizations like that did previously, and how it brought people to the table and it opened up more doors for them to build other programming, because now they have a much more firm understanding of what the people feel like is lacking. So yeah, that's really, it's historically speaking, that's really how it spoke to me the most.
Thank you.
I guess a historical event, something that we can go off of, a figure that inspired. When I first heard about the General Strike, I was amazed about how they were doing a decentralized organization, a horizontal organization. I guess in history, I had to go back, and Comrade Bunchy mentioned the indigenous people. So when we look back at like the Apaches, and how they held off the Spanish for like 200 years, and just looking at the way they organize, one of the highlights is they did it through decentralization. Decentralization, as far as the numbers, we're trying to reach the 3.5%. And the way it's just proof that it helps information reach different nodes faster. As far as executing plannings goes out a lot faster. It's flexible, shared power. These are some of the traits that help the Apaches, fight and hold them off for so long. As far as destroying some of the normal centralized powers that we see, we have to break off, and we have to do somewhat of a starfish model, so we can sustain ourselves. If one node is targeted, it won't affect the other nodes, while we are trying to build power and get that 11 million people. So that's what really stood out to me, throughout history. I really admired the way they, held themselves.
We have an absolutely wonderful luxury of being able to learn directly from members that were a part of that legacy. Earlier Bunchy mentioned Che Brooks. We get to talk to him. We get to have conversations with him. We get to run ideas by him, and we get to hear him say, "No, don't do that. We did that. That doesn't end well." We get to see, things that happen in the history, and get to see where we are now as a community and how that evolution has occurred, and speak with people that have gone through that evolution of time, and see how times have changed for them, see how they would do things right now, and really be able to execute that effectively. So there are definitely notions throughout history that we have examined and said, okay, we have to make sure, to Bunchy's point earlier, there are a lot of misconceptions around the history of the Black Panther Party. And some of the things that, have been genuinely stated, and, concerns about those legacies, we now have the opportunity to analyze those things and say, we're not that anymore. We've been able to build, we've been able to put different programs, different policies and rules in place to ensure that this doesn't become an issue anymore, and people can be held accountable. We have to be able to take those criticisms and analyze it, and that's a necessary part of any history. You have to be able to properly analyze it and come to terms with the reality of it, to ensure that not only are we celebrating that legacy, not only are we learning from just the magnificent things that legacy has provided, but also the things that were done wrong. nothing's perfect. Nobody is. But what can we do to learn from that? And being able to hear that from some people firsthand has been an absolute honor. Some of the names that we read in the history books and being able to have conversations with them is incredible. And then you start to hear the message, and it really starts to ground you to, oh, like, you know, all these heroic things that you did. This was your mindset while these things were happening. And I have to be able to recognize that too, that, these massive historical figures, they were struggling as these things happened. We can we can put a heroic spin on those activities, and to us it's absolutely valid, and it's something that I had to learn for myself, is that usually when somebody's doing a true act of honor, um, there's many times where that's when you're at your most troubled times mentally. That's when you're at your most troubled times physically, because of the weight that it's holding on you in these massive moments. And being able to learn that firsthand has been incredible.
Yeah, and the question of how do you bridge the connection between the past struggles and present day movements, I think you brought out something just then about the importance of being in connection and relationship with the elders of the movement, having that mentor aspect in the community, and being able to learn from that seems like it's an important and critical element of being able to bring the legacy into modern day or current struggle. Do you believe that is true? Anybody on this? I kind of hear it from what you were just saying.
I mean, I think it's imperative that we do that. There's a, if you don't know the past, you're doomed to repeat it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times when you read things, what you're reading is not the whole story. Um, the reason, and I say that to say very plainly, I've read many books written by people who are in the party. um, and some of the very same incidences that they speak about in their books, the way that they're described are very different. But that's mainly because you're talking about people speaking about an event from their personal viewpoint. It could be that I was all the way on the other side of the room. So the way that I'm seeing this completely different from the way you're seeing it being in the mix of that situation. So I call Jay Brooks. I call, I can reach out to Blair Anderson. I can reach out to the Ruba Ben Wahad. I can reach out to a lot of people who were Panthers back then, who could say, hey, I understand what you're saying, young blood, but that ain't the answer. Like, like much like Addo was saying, they'll say, no, we tried that, it didn't work, and this is why. Maybe consider this. And that's I think it's needed, because a lot of times we're going to make the same mistakes that they made because we're walking in the exact same footprints. So the way to avoid that is by having that connection to the past. You can't even call yourself a Panther in 2024 if you have no connection to the legacy of the party. Like I personally feel some type of way when a person called himself a Panther and they have no connection to the legacy of the party whatsoever. I don't mind saying there was a point when we first started where we were aligned with a different organization that called themselves Panthers. I will not say their name out of respect for some of my comrades who are still over there. But when I found out that there was no 10-point platform involved in their ideology, there's no, like, it's basically like one leader and everybody follows that person. And I'm like, that leads to a lot of bad decisions being made. That leads to a lot of that leads to tyrannical operations in your organization, and we can't have that. The reason why the Central Committee exists is to keep that balance. So once that was noted, I was like, yo, we can't do this. If we're gonna do it, we got to do it right. I called my father and was like, listen, This is what's happening. He was like, nah, that ain't it. So I think it's necessary not only to avoid the mistakes, but also in their advanced ages, they've seen things that we haven't seen. And they may know something that we don't know, that we're not going to know until we either reach that point that they're at or until they tell us. And that in and of itself is powerful. The things that I learned when I talked to Che, it may seem like he's making a joke. And so the average person on the outside, if they would listen to our conversation, they might laugh and be like, oh, that's funny. But I understand exactly what he means because we study the same stuff. So I know where he's coming from and I know what he means. And I could bring it back to the Central Committee of the Black Panther Party and say, hey, I talked to Shay and this is what he said. Da 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 da. Boom. Just like that. Whatever the problem was, problem solved. Now we have a firm understanding not only of the problem, but of the many avenues the solution may take and how many of these avenues have already been taken and led to a dead end. So now instead of having 5 options, we have 2. That saves us a lot of time. So there's a lot of time that we don't have to attend to what the people need. If you can take some of the guesswork out of it, it makes you far more efficient. That is the thing that we have as our advantage that they didn't have. And like we have to utilize those advantages that we have. Otherwise, we're asking to be destroyed. So, yeah.
Just to touch about what tools can help us make that connection between the past struggle and the present. Just to add what everyone was saying, not having a 10-point platform is crazy to me, but it's definitely a good way. Like I said earlier, we found a lot of our broad list of demands, strike demands, within that platform. But a great tool that can also help make those connections is historical materialism, which is just, Marxist interpretation of history in terms of class struggle. And, we always want to use this. I think it's a great tool to always refer back to, just so we can see, the progress and, what we're still fighting for. So I just wanted to add that, as well as just being a great tool to rely on when trying to, come to these conclusions.
And you mentioned earlier about micro communities in the previous question. So I want to talk about how General Strike U.S. focuses on building connections in the micro communities. Can you elaborate on the opportunities that General Strike U.S. is pursuing and the plans to strengthen these small communities and micro communities? And first, before you get into that, kind of maybe explain what a micro community is.
Now with the micro communities, so GSUS offers several spaces to make these connections in these micro communities. One, of course, social media, offering spaces to connect, like on Instagram, TikTok, and Discord, which is like our main hub for meaningful connections and spreading awareness and finding resources. But one highlight that I'm excited about is, General Strike U.S.'s ability to look at the alternatives of what life may look after the strike, and by us, focusing on aligning ourselves with developers of intentional communities. Creating this micro community, we're striving to create, GSUS intentional communities, regardless they're under us or aligned with some other group partner, through another group. Also, our physical GSUS chapters, our hubs, our chapters, locally, like the one here, that's creating a community, as well, a small community within itself, a physical community. There's just 3 ways I feel it's important: targeting online, targeting in the future, possibly like a bigger community, as Bunchy mentioned earlier. Striving towards revolutionary intercommunalism. As we know, imperialism has basically made a lot of, states, nations, imperialism has turned them into reactionary intercommunity. So, what we strive to do, what so many groups like the Panthers strive to do, is we strive to empower the people, reclaim our communities, and, set up liberated communities, liberated territories where we can practice some of these ideas and this new participatory ways of living.
Amazing work. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. And I want to thank all of you for being with us tonight and sharing your insight and experience. It's been a very enlightening discussion, and I deeply appreciate all the work that each of you are doing, each of your organizations you're representing on this call are doing to foster solidarity and drive change within our community. So I want to thank you. And before we wrap up, I want to give space to each of you to kind of give last words to the audience, to how they can support you, get involved, learn about, and get engaged with the work that you're doing. So everyone wants to start off?
I guess my last words would just be, please always ask what's next. If you're asking that question, you know, there have been times where we've been seen as highly critical of you know, different platforms. There have been times where we've been seen as highly critical of you know, the term activism rather than, you know, revolutionary action. A revolutionary is an activist, but if you're an activist and you're not asking what's next, you've recognized the problem, you've orated the problem. What's next? And that's what's next is going to drive you to action, and that's revolutionary. So if you're asking that question and you continue to ask that question every day to bring new programming, that's how we're going to reach that sustainability. That's how we're going to bring ourselves beyond current action that might be happening right now. As far as how to join, you know, just speaking for the Panther Party, you know, we have a website, thepantherparty.com, where you can reach out to. You can reach out on that website. Obviously, we're on social medias, you know, all over the place. You know, there again, if you stand for the people, there is a place for you, whether that be in the Black Panther Party or the Panther Party. And you know, as Daii being a member of GS.U.S. and being a Panther, you know, it shows that, you know, it's okay if you're a part of another organization as well. There are, you know, a few stipulations there, but you know, back to your you know, kind of a common theme that you've been talking about, and it's about solidarity. So if this is something that you feel right, you reach out. And thank you for having us, comrade. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, much appreciated, definitely. Black Panther Party WA.com, bpp.wa on Instagram. Feel free to reach out to us in any capacity if you are interested in learning more about the party, if you're interested in learning more about how to get involved in survival programs, or if you're interested in perhaps bringing the party to your city. Feel free to reach out. You can, I don't normally do this, and I'm gonna just tell you now, you can do it, but it's probably a good chance it'll be a little delayed reaction. You can look me up on social media, Bunchy Carter on Facebook. That's the only place I got a Bunchy Carter social media. So, well, I do have a TikTok, but there's really nothing there. I use it to post party stuff. You won't find out anything about me. I'll just put it that way. If you want to know about the party, feel free to follow me. And I guess in closing, yeah, thank you for having us for one. For two, thank you, Daii, for bringing you know, General Strike's perspective to this conversation as well. It's very much needed. The party has not lost our connection to the struggle of workers. We're still very much engaged with that. I just want people to. The only thing I would ask of anybody that's watching this, and anybody that may send this to somebody, whoever you share it with, the only thing I would ask that you do is be mindful of not only of what it is that you are studying, but be mindful of what it's doing to you, and be mindful of how the community around you is progressing. Because sometimes we fail to read the room because we think we're the smartest person in it. Yeah, don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself, because if you think you're the smartest person, if you are the smartest person in the room, get out of the room immediately. That's the only advice I can give. All power to the people.
Sweet. Really appreciate you holding this space, Jason. It's always a pleasure. If you would like to help us and volunteer, educate, organize, and prepare with the General Strike, reach out to us on TikTok or Instagram at General Strike U.S. We also have a website. I have a link tree for our Detroit chapter. But definitely, our solidarity is revolutionary. They prey on our division. They prey on us to stay divided. So our solidarity is revolutionary within itself. And don't think because you're not a worker that this strike isn't for you. Our problems go deeper than just labor. We want to connect with every walk of life, the unhoused community, the prison community, every infinity group out there, all oppressed people, and this struggle goes international as well. International solidarity.
Wonderful. Thank you. And again, thank you all for the time that you spent, for the work you're doing, and for the listeners out there. All the links to each of these groups and everything that was mentioned in this conversation will be in the description on whatever platform you're watching and or listening to this. If you want to stay connected, we will send out the recording of this video. It'll be on radicalguide.com. And you can sign up to our Radical Guides newsletter. We'll also send it out there with the relevant links to be connected. I strongly believe that you'll hear more from the Black Panther Party, the Panther Party, and General Strike U.S. Through these channels. So stay connected. I'm sure we'll develop some things in the near future together. And again, thank you for spending this time with us, listening to this show. And as we always say, follow ideas, not people. Thank you. Good night.